Both are vitally important to life itself, and neither one can or should be hid, just like that city on a hill. Indeed, the light that comes from within is never, ever meant for me and mine alone, or ourselves alone. The light of Christ can't help but warm us too. It is always meant for the other. It is always meant for the world. Only it seems obvious to me this. One cannot be light or bear light for others unless we have experienced or received this gift of light ourselves. My world is shrouded in darkness. It is awfully hard to let my light shine, as Jesus' words today would have us do. And yet somehow, even if the light I'm given to shine seems so small, it surely goes a long way. Indeed, I have heard it said that if the earth were entirely flat, you could see the light of a flickering candle 30 miles away. So it doesn't take much light for it to be seen. I do not know when the sun will shine for long periods of time here in north central Indiana, or upon us here in this country where darkness surely threatens. But I do know this. The light still shines, even when it seems as though it doesn't. And when it seems that it doesn't, well, then I expect it starts with you and me. And maybe we simply start by looking for light. Light that is a gift. Light that can be received. Light that can be passed along. Here's where I found myself thinking about this kind of light in these past few days. Last week I sat down with Brandy from Mental Health America and another Brandy from Buena Vista to plan a talent show here at Southside for the consumers of both agencies. As we discussed themes and decoration and food, woven into the discussion were the need of those dealing with mental health issues and the lack of support that is offered. It occurred to me that light was shining through this shared partnership. I saw light again when I had a conversation with Sharon Kerr about the illness my father-in-law is facing. I told her some of the issues our family is being faced with, and through her listening and guidance, I received yet more light. I saw light at Bible study when our group headed into choppy waters of trying to figure out who we are as Christians in the middle of this nation's difficulties. And everyone had their opinions, and that is fine. Everyone also listened and did so without anger. We talked and learned from each other, and no one got mad. We all tried to lead the conversation with our faith. I was, and still, very proud of the grace and love with which we had that conversation. Did we solve all matters of the world that day? Well, we sure would like to think we did, but we did not. But through us, we received light, and we shared light. These are all small things, I know. But in a world where darkness threatens, even a small light can make a difference. And that light is ours to shine, isn't it? And so I'm wondering with all of you now, where have you seen light lately? How have you been light, and how has that light been reflected back to you? And how are you called to be light tomorrow? How might even our small lights make all the difference? Indeed, what does it mean for you and me and us together to let our light shine as Jesus calls us to now? How might those lights bring understanding and direction and hope? Along with many occasionally, I feel paralyzed in the face of so much darkness, especially as I recognize it is mine to be a spiritual leader in the midst of it. One of the ways I'm choosing to shed light is by continuing those faith-filled conversations of exploration. I also plan to share light through authentic joy, or all that shows, as best I can, the love God has for all people. And so I wonder now, what gifts of light are you called to bring to this particular present darkness? Finally, us to first receive the light we are called to share? How will we be strengthened and sustained as we listen and respond to Jesus' call to and for us now to be the light of the world? The promise in our series called New Year's Same Promises, we consider this. God doesn't leave us here without direction. Whether we are in need of light, or whether we are commissioned to be the light, or whether we find ourselves in both places. We are, in fact, promised a path forward. We are not left to sort it out alone. God's constant promise to us is that in our trust of God's wisdom, God will guide us always. One of my favorite movies, and one of my favorite stories in that movie, is Apollo 13. And many of us have said, Houston, we have a problem. And when Mission Control Chief Gene Kranz says, gentlemen, failure is not an option, get all tingly and proud of the genius our country accomplished right in that moment. Do you know this movie? So good. In Jim Lovell's book, Apollo 13, of which the famous movie starring Tom Hanks is based on, Lovell tells a very amazing story about a flight he was on while stationed on an aircraft carrier. It was coming on dark, and he was quite a ways from the carrier when all his instruments went dead. He was literally flying blind, almost dark, and hours before a sliver of moon would rise. He tried everything to get the instruments back, including completely turning off the plane's jet engine and turning it back on again. He radioed his flight chief asking for his position relative to the carrier so he could at least be flying toward home instead of back out to sea. Amazingly, he was dead on the stern of the ship. All he had to do was keep flying straight. But how would he know he was flying straight without his instruments? Being a most accomplished pilot, he flew as he had been trained by the seat of his pants. Then he began to worry about how he would land the plane. If he came in too low, he'd crash in the stern. If he came in too high, he'd overshoot the hook, which catches and slows down planes and wouldn't grab him, so he'd wind up in the drink for sure. Right in front of the huge ship, traveling at least 30 to 40 knots. He changed his thought channel when he got to that point. The chief told him not to borrow trouble, that they'd work it out when he caught up with the ship. Several minutes flew by. He lost radio contact, and I'm thinking, this guy has the worst luck in the world. How could he ever land on an aircraft carrier in the dark, with no lights and no instruments and no radio? Lovell said that about that time, he saw the sea begin to glow. He instantly realized that this was the plankton stirred up in the wake of the ship. All he had to do was follow the glow, and he'd be home in no time. The closer he got, the brighter the sea got, and soon the froth churned up by the gigantic propellers was glowing almost as bright as a full moon. Bright enough so that he could gauge the proper height to land. It might not have been his most graceful landing, but I'm sure it was his most light-filled. You know, God will guide you to the light. God will also guide you to share the light. As that old hymn says, trust and obey. Let your light shine. And now, if you'll please repeat after me. I am the light of the world.
I am the light of the world.
Will you please join with me in the hymn of discipleship, Lord, I Want to Be a Christian, all verses. You can find that in your hymnals at number 589. This is also the time when you're invited to confess your faith in Jesus Christ and to come forward and proudly and boldly say that you believe in Jesus. Will you please stand and join with me as we sing this hymn?